It's Friday and listening to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Milan FM, the sound of Lagos. I trust we had an amazing week. This is the last Friday in the month of May, and as it is this weekend, everybody, actually the world is, a large part of the world is looking forward to the transition ceremony that's going to be happening on Monday. We're all looking forward to it. The presidential inauguration, and as well the gubernatorials, across the 36 states of the country. It's going to be an interesting one, and that's the excitement for it for this weekend, even up until Monday. And just as I promised, just as we promised earlier on, yes, we are going to be keeping you up to speed as regards what is happening at the various inauguration centers, from Abuja to Lagos to Ogun State to Oyo State, in and around the country. Be rest assured that you can tune in to Milan 98.3 FM, and from 10 a.m. from 11 a.m. rather, from 11 a.m. we are tuned in and giving you up-to-date information as regards the inauguration, step by step, hooking you up and ensuring that you stay well informed. All right, so stay tuned. It's going to be an interesting ride, and we can't wait for you to join us on that amazing ride. It's Trends in the Papers. My name is Omobola Sandra, and I'll be having FUHAD SAHEED joining in via the phone line in a bit. But before then, this is the part where we get to talk about trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. We look at the major trending stories. This morning we'll be looking through The Guardian, The Nation, Vanguard, and New Telegraph. We'll be looking through the papers and bring you up to speed. We'll do this up until 8:30, and then by 8:40 we move on to Milan Focus, where we pick two or more trending stories, put some spotlight on it, open up the phone line for you to join in on the conversation. It promises to be an interesting one. It's always an interesting one, and today is Friday, so I hope and I expect that the excitement is in the air, and for a lot of us salary earners, it's salary week as well. Don't spend it all. Don't spend it all this weekend. Very, very important. All right, so let's hook up to FUHAD, amazing analyst, as we look through the trending stories. Good morning, FUHAD. Thank God it's Friday.
Good morning, Sandra. Yes, thank God it's Friday. And how many days of inauguration?
Just 3 days.
I think 3 days, yeah?
Yes, just 3 days. Are you excited? We're having a new president.
Well, I'm excited at least we're having a peaceful transition.
Oh, that's
the excitement for me.
You're not excited that the incoming administration is pregnant with so many expectations, and there's a lot of hope out there that things may be turning around for the better, especially Lagosians, who one way or the other have experienced some sort of governance from the president elect.
Well, until the baby is delivered, I think I just want to just be optimistic about all of this.
All right, then. There's no issues. I mean, everyone to his own kettle. Let's see what we have here on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. And the major headline, 8 years after, vanity of rich talents as football declines. Team sports wobble without laurels. And the big story is on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper. So, FUHAD, I know that in recent times there have been some sort of performance review of, the Buhari administration. Now we are looking at the sports sector. So what we have in this report, disappointment of Nigeria's absence at Qatar's 2022 FIFA World Cup will linger in the minds of Nigerians far beyond President Muhammadu Buhari's tenure. Although, our flag was hoisted among the 32 contenders at the 2018 edition of the World Cup in Russia. But then the failure to make it to Qatar hurt sport-loving Nigerians the most. Aside from that, it's a very long, read. It's a long report. But then aside from that, the Olympics as well, there were a lot of, very unsettling, reports that we got from the Olympics, from videos of our athletes having to wash their own having to wash their own outfits. Yeah. Yes, having to wash their own outfits because they have just one and they have to wash it and wear. Okay, so looking generally at the sports sector, yes, what would be your thoughts? Because the report here is saying our football is declining.
Is it just our football?
Yeah, to just
That's other sports.
the focus
I'm
the
even
focus
looking at
here is is
yeah. Maybe football as as a reflection of how bad things are in the sporting world.
yes.
If you look at athletics, where exactly are we now? Except for one or two bright performances
Toby Amuson.
from some of our athletes who I'm sure on their own, just went out there to that they're able to achieve that feat. Not necessarily because we give them that support
Yes.
back home.
Okay.
I'm sure their training regimens, every other thing that they needed to do to get to that level was done from their own personal effort. You understand? Now, if we look at football again, at least as a young person, I knew there was what was called the Principal's Cup at that time, which was a competition among secondary schools.
Well, we still have the Principal's Cup, don't we?
They are still playing it. Well, I don't know where they are still playing the Principal's Cup because I don't even know where the football fields. I don't even know where they are now. And apart from that, you used to have these grassroots competitions. There was that intentional effort about getting talent from the grassroots. And so you have a graduation of players from the under 17 to the 21, and then of course to the national team. But now everything should be on the downward slide. I really don't know what to do in terms of getting real talent. And that's why we struggle. Even in Africa now, we're actually struggling. You have countries like Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, these other countries, doing far better than us because I think they are more intentional about the process of developing football in their different countries. But until we are intentional about these things, again, people would argue that, look, when it comes to sectors, for a lot of people that are optimistic about the new government, I just want to wait and see. It will start from the kinds of appointments he makes. When you choose somebody who doesn't even understand anything about sports and you put them in the sports industry, it's going to be a disaster. The current sports minister is a journalist. He doesn't have any records of having done any records of sports
Sunday
or anything. How he became the sports minister and all of. And again, I'm hoping that maybe there's a story for us to even highlight this. The idea of even merging ministries that are not related together and putting it under one minister. Look, when you say youth development, does it necessarily mean sports development? Let's even start from there. When you say youth development, does it necessarily mean that if you want to develop the youth, it has to be with sports? Sports is a serious business that should be under a separate ministry with somebody that understands the business of sports, how it is developed, and how it's done internationally. And then we'll talk about youth development. It has to be somebody who also understands, the aspirations of the youth at this time in terms of IT, in terms of industrialization, in terms of global outlook and all of that. But the idea of youth development, I'm sure, for those that merge the two ministries together, is thinking that, look, with sports, you can always develop the youth and it's limited to sports. The other one is Minister of Works and Housing. How does works and housing? Look, the business of housing in its own should have a minister that understands the business of housing. And works is about infrastructure and all of that. It should be somebody who also understands the intricacies of providing infrastructure and ensuring that there's an enduring legacy on it.
Civil engineers.
People that even understand the business of infrastructure, people that understand the business of housing and real estate should manage that portfolio, but we merge it together. Look at another disaster. Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism. How does information relate to tourism now? Because the business of information should be an information expert. Somebody that understands branding, that understands the business of branding the country, that understands the business of communication and information, should be in charge of that ministry. And tourism is a big business on its own that should be managed by an expert in the tourism industry. If you listen yesterday to Creative Nigeria, the tourism guys,
yes,
that was what they said. That the Minister of Information never even paid any attention to tourism. I guess he didn't understand what to do with that ministry. So, that's why, again, I keep saying that, look, I'm cautiously optimistic about this incoming government. And from their appointment, we will know the direction they are going, whether it's still the same of the same or we are going to have a different direction. So I'm not surprised that in the sporting world, we have not been doing well. Because, again, we've been still round pegs in square holes.
All right. Well, just as you have said, I mean, it's about putting square pegs in round holes. All right, because the truth of the matter, I mean, Nigeria has produced greats in the past. There are big names that have come from Nigerian football, Nigerian athletics, Nigerian sports, generally speaking. If we're talking about, the JJ Okochas of this world and, the Kano, yes, I say Kano, of this world. So I mean, yes, Kano uncle, yeah, and here we are. I was having a conversation the other day with some of the sports guys in the office, and FUHAD, I just wanted to ask, even the deplorable state of our sporting centers and facilities. Yes, someone said, "Oh, why can't Nigeria host, the next, Africa Cup of Nations or something?" And the question came up of how many, properly developed stadium or stadia do we have, in the country. All right, but it's a very long read. It's a very interesting report that's put together here in the Guardian newspaper. Vanity of rich talents as football declines, team sports wobble without laurels. Fuhad, I mean, Victor Osimhen, what would be your thought if you want to put it against, how the welfare of our sportsmen and women in this country, as against, Victor Osimhen, who came from the slums and is, the top goal scorer in the Italian Serie A now?
Despite all the odds and challenges back and the fact that we are not really intentional about developing talent, you will always have one or two people that will be so lucky, like Victor Osimhen. Not because of any deliberate action from Nigeria. We must always put that out there. I can tell you that, look, if we are really deliberate about developing our sport, there are thousands of Victor Osimhen out there. But the situation of the country is why a lot of them can't even blossom. So, but when you see people like Victor Osimhen, it's just one out of so many Victor Osimhen that would have been able to make. But the system will not even make them try. Look at our even local league. I'm sure the sports guys have said quite enough about the fact that we are not even serious about anything. You go look. When I was schooling at Abeokuta, I used to go watch. I think it was Julius Baja that was using the MK Abiola Stadium in Abeokuta then for their home games in the league. And anytime I go there, I just shake my head. The conditions of the players, even the pitch, even the bus that brings the team to the stadium, bro, you will know that we are not serious. Even when you look at the players, you know that they are only marking time. They are looking for any opportunity anywhere in the world. Even if it's in Afghanistan, they will travel out and play there. As I'm talking to you, if there's an opportunity in Syria that is fighting war, don't be surprised that some of our footballers will go there and play because of the situation back home. So again, it's about new direction. If we have a new government that's intentional about fixing these problems, I think the better for us. But again, we'll have to wait and see.
All right. Thank you very much. It's a very extensive report, just as mentioned earlier. It's on the entire, pages 4 and 5. The fact of vanity of rich talents that we have in the country as football declines, team sports wobble without laurels. At this time now, I think under 20 seems to be struggling, to even qualify for the under 20 World.
I think they are doing well.
Because they won against Italy the last one.
Yeah, they are doing well. I think those ones are even, but the under 17 was the issue. I think they will, they're not going to the World Cup. But generally, I think we can do better. We have the talent out there. If you go to all of these Alagbole football, when I say Alagbole, all these fields in our local communities, you see rich talent, what I can call raw talent. But again, how do you nurture them to global stage without being intentional about facilities? Go to Sulere Stadium and see what is happening there. The deplorable condition of that stadium. We want to play an international match. We are even scratching our head to the stadium to play. Whether the grass is bad or the floodlight is not working, or there's always a problem.
All right. Thank you very much, Fuad. More details on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper. That's the major headline. Moving on now, we also have court fines ex-presidential candidate 40 million naira for seeking to stop Tinubu's inauguration.
For wasting their time.
All right. So we have here the Court of Appeal in Abuja has fined former presidential candidate Chief Ambrose Albert Owuru the sum of 40 million naira for filing a frivolous suit to stop inauguration of the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu on May 29. The court yesterday ordered the politician to pay a fine of 10 million naira each to President Muhammadu Buhari, to the Attorney General of the Federation, to INEC, and to Tinubu, whom he made first to fourth defendants in his suit. All right, let's not forget that the appellate court held that the grievance of Owuru against the 2019 presidential election was not only strange.
Look at this election, now 2019.
I had to bring that in. His grievance against the 2019 presidential election was not only strange, but also uncalled for, because the matter had already been pursued up to Supreme Court and dismissed for want of merit. You know,
and now brought it back again.
And now brought it back to the Court of Appeal. All right, well, that is what's happening. They're saying that
they should have banned him from coming to court, right?
They said that Owuru's bid to resuscitate the case was aimed at putting lower courts on a collision course with the Supreme Court. That's an interesting one. Do you have anything to say as regards that? So move on to
basically what the court has done is to say, look, before coming to waste our time, you will pay. That's what they said. Because it's an abuse of the judicial process. And I remember when this case was announced, I was wondering, actually, you read it and analyzed it here, that look, how do you bring a 2019 case to stop the inauguration of an election in 2023 when those cases have been concluded and sorted out, even to the Supreme Court level? But again, a lot of funny shenanigans we've been seeing in recent time. But again, it is good that the courts are, of course, stamping their feet and telling people not to come and waste their time in this manner.
Well, there we are. Apologies for that. Because, something that's been cleared off by the Supreme Court and then coming back to the appellate court. But aside from that, this report is also giving us that the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Olukayode Ariwoola, swore in 39 additional judges to resolve petitions from the 2023 election. It told the new tribunal members to ensure they rise above failure and humiliation, saying he hoped to hear good testimonies at the end of their assignment. We also have a rights group cautions judiciary against unfair verdicts. More details of that on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. We also have here, Johesu declares indefinite strike, demands adjustment of CONHES. So Johesu is they started their strike at midnight. That's the Joint Health Sector Unions and also the Assembly of Healthcare Professional Associations commenced an indefinite strike over the federal government's failure to adjust the consolidated health salary structure for health workers, as was done with the consolidated medical salary structure, CONMES, for physicians. Wow, that's a lot of people. Consequently, the unions directed members in federal health institutions nationwide to withdraw their services indefinitely beginning yesterday. I understand the grievance of Johesu or anyone who's trying to make a point. But how effective do you think this action would be? 3 days to hand over.
I think just like the resident doctors did in recent times, the 5 days warning strike. I think all of these strikes are just, last days of this outgoing government is to send signals to the incoming government. I think we spoke with the head of resident doctors in Lagos for last week for Luke. And I remember the interview with Mainland FM. What she said basically was that, look, these warning strikes were to send signals to the incoming government that there are a lot of unresolved issues that they would have to quickly attend to, because these are agreements that have been pending for long years and all of that, and it would be important that when they take over, they quickly attend to them. So I think that's what Johesu is also trying to do, because I know for sure that, look, at this last half of this government, there's nothing that these unions will be able to achieve with them, nothing practically. I'm 100% sure about that. Despite the fact that the president is saying that ministers should work to May 29. I think working to May 29 is not to resolve issues like this. I'm 100% sure about that. So I think all of these strikes are going to come. The warning strikes will come, but it is for the incoming government to pay attention to activities of these unions and what they are demanding for, and quickly find a way to meet with them, speak with them, understand their grievances, and find a workable solution to them.
Thank you very much. More details on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Also, we have Nigeria gets 7 oil regulations amid 46.16 billion naira stolen and missing crude. And that is also on page 3. All right. So we have here Nigeria signed 7 new regulations into law yesterday in Abuja in a move to boost metering of all crude oil operations in the upstream segment of the nation's petroleum industry. So, the new regulations signed by the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission are Nigeria Upstream Petroleum Measurement Regulations, Frontier Basins Exploration Fund Administration Regulations, Production Curtailment and Domestic Crude Oil Supply Obligation Regulations, Nigeria Upstream Decommissioning and Abandonment Regulations, Nigeria Upstream Petroleum Unitization Regulations, Gas Flaring, Venting and Methane Emission, that's Prevention of Waste and Population Regulations, and Significant Crude Oil and Gas Discovery Regulation. Being a key requirement of the Petroleum Industry Act, the development came at a time Nigeria is battling crude oil theft. So, Fuad, what do you think? Although there are loopholes that have been identified in regulations, including lack of metering of oil input, has been blamed for the development that we have had as regards, stolen and unaccounted for crude oil in recent years. So hereby, yes.
Even if you have 1 million regulations now, this regulation, that regulation, so much semantics. A lot of semantics there. Basically, all we need to do is to ensure accountability and probity when it comes to oil exploration in Nigeria. Look, the reports of crude theft in the country is so embarrassing. And unfortunately, some of these things have global outlook. These are reports that paint Nigeria as a country that is not really serious about fixing its own problems. So even if we have all of the regulations in the world, we put it in place. Even the Petroleum Industry Act, if we are not intentional and deliberate about doing the right thing, the willpower, nothing is going to change. So when you were reading out all the regulations, I was just, smirking. I'm like, look, we have always had regulations. If you bring new ones, the major regulation should be the willpower to do the right thing, the intentional, being intentional about fixing the problem. Maybe we had a temporal arrangement added to the regulation that we're now bringing up. What has happened? What has changed? I'm not really excited about all these regulations until I see that, look, the government that has the willpower and is intentional about fixing this problem. We can have all the regulations in the world. It's not like when you create a law or you create a policy and then you fall flat when it comes to implementation. So I'm not excited. The regulations can come, but do we have the willpower to do the right thing? That's a big question.
Well, thank you very much. Just as you said, the key word there is the will. The will to actually do something about it. It's a different thing when you have policies and regulations, just as FUHAD has rightly pointed out, because yes, there are justifications in the report, as regards why these regulations were put in place, trying to, mitigate some certain things, especially as regards, stolen and unaccounted for crude oil in recent years. But we'll see how, if the will to actually regulate, would actually see it as time goes on. Meanwhile, Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading, NBET, in Abuja yesterday signed a 20-year 726 megawatts power purchase agreement to improve electricity supply and attract investment. The deal was signed with Transcorp PLC, and the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, said government will remain committed to improving environment for doing business in the power sector. So, FUHAD, a 20-year 726 megawatts power purchase agreement to improve electricity supply.
Sorry, I didn't get that, sorry.
Okay, I'll take it again. We have here that Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading PLC, that's NBET, signed a 20-year 726 megawatts power purchase agreement that's supposed to improve electricity supply and attract investment. and the deal was signed with Transcorp PLC. According to them, they said there's need for more investment in the power sector, adding that the new PPA would encourage long-term investment in the country.
Well, it's just an agreement, and I think there's really nothing to say about this other than the fact that, look, until we begin to see that indeed there's an improvement in power supply in the country, this agreement, we've had several agreements like this, on how to improve the power sector, on how to ensure that, power becomes more available and stable to Nigerians. And as we speak, the result doesn't show that things have improved the way we want it to be. So these agreements, that we are used to, and this is another one that has not now been reported. But I think we shouldn't waste too much time on this until, like people always say, just like when you're talking about the economy and policies, until the living standards of the people improve and they begin to feel it personally, there's really nothing we can say. So until, yes, we see an improvement, this will just remain an agreement that has been signed. But again, it's also being intentional about these things that we have to continue to talk about. So I think we should just move to another story, really, because I don't see any major thing from this.
All right, then let's move on to operators' kick as federal government takes delivery of Nigeria airplanes against court order. Airline operators and aviation stakeholders yesterday kicked as the federal government milled the delivery of 2 Nigeria airplanes today to herald the takeoff of the controversial national carrier. The stakeholders, under the aegis of Airline Operators of Nigeria, faulted the project coming upstream on the last day of the current administration and in violation of extant court orders on status quo ante. Contrary to court orders, the minister Hadi Sirika, very interesting, person, very interesting fellow, said that the aircraft will be unveiled in Nigerian colors in fulfillment of all promises the Buhari-led administration made in the aviation sector. FUHAD, 8 years, 8 full years.
Yes.
8 years. We had 8 years of this current administration. Fine, Hadi Sirika became minister some few years ago, but then 8 years of this administration and 3 days to hand over to an incoming administration. We're taking delivery of airplanes.
It's not just the delivery of airplanes that even is the problem.
Is it the rating orders of injunctions?
Yeah, because again, if we continue to disobey our courts in this manner, again, it becomes a bit worrying. No, it's completely worrying that there's a court order against going ahead with this process. But the Minister of Aviation, has always insisted and has always vowed that, look, whatever, no matter any court order or not, this thing is going to happen. And
so what you're saying is that there's a lot to take from this. Aside from the fact that we have a few days to transition, there's also the fact that the Minister of Aviation there are indications that he's planning to circumvent the court orders that restricts him from taking any step.
Yeah, that's the issue. Now, this is a disobedience of a court order. And it's unfortunate, really. It's not a banana republic. We're supposed to be a country governed by law. And we're supposed to follow the rule of law. So if we disobey court orders in this manner, then it's really, really very unfortunate. But again, I've always asked the question, Sandra, why is the Minister of Aviation so desperate about this Nigeria airtrain? And to what end? What are we getting? What are we getting exactly? He has not been able to really convince us what this Nigeria air project will bring to the table for Nigeria. As we speak, 49% of whatever we do with Nigeria Air goes to Ethiopia Airlines. They are pilots to fly this plane. Because what I see, basically, is that, look, one of the planes of Ethiopia Airlines, they just want to paint it and give to us. Because we didn't buy this aircraft, if you understand what I'm saying. So what they did was that maybe one of the two, maybe, Ethiopia Airlines maybe has a lot of aircraft. So what they've done is to just paint it Nigeria and give to us. They have 49% stake. Private investors that we have not been able to identify properly, who the owners of those companies are, about 3 of them, who their shareholders are, what they've done in the aviation sector before, when those companies were registered and all of that, have, I think, about 46%. And then just a meager 5% belongs to the federal government. And we are so desperate about such a venture, Sandra. And that's why it will be important to ask the Minister of Aviation, why are you so, what exactly is the interest? Why are you so desperate to the point that you are even ready to violate a court order.
Now, Fuhad, I also have in this report now that there's a stakeholder who did not want to be mentioned, regretted that 7 years after and billions wasted, why is the minister still bent on creating landmines for the next administration?
You see? Because again, one would think that at this last lap of their government, what he would have done is to allow the thing to remain the way it is now, and allow the new government to decide whether they want to go ahead with it or not.
Do you also?
But you know, I think yes, I'm with you. Just go on.
Okay. Do you also agree that with this anonymous fellow, that the National Carrier Project is one of the most wasteful ventures undertaken in Nigeria's aviation history?
I agree completely, because if you look at how much we've committed, you know, God knows how much we've paid consultants. If you remember how much we also paid to design a logo.
I can't forget.
If you remember this particular Nigerian Air. And I'm sure that we've had several reports to so much amount of money we paid to consultants. God knows how much the minister has also wasted in travel efforts, going around the country for whatever on this particular project. And at the end of the day, we have now conceded a major part of this project to Ethiopia Airlines. And then some not completely identified private business owners. And then 5% goes to Nigeria. And so we ask ourselves again, what end is all of this effort about? This exploration to have Nigeria Air about?
Now, Fuad, I also have it from the same report, because here there are some salient questions that he also pushed forward. He said, one, I'm quoting, can the Civil Aviation Authority confirm which AOC Nigeria Air is using? AOC, that's Airline Operator Certificate, or Air Operators, yes, Air Operator Certificate. That which AOC is Nigeria Air using, and has an AOC even been issued? And when was it issued at all? You know, there's so many questions.
Up to today, we don't have a report whether any AOC has been issued. If I have the last report, they don't have AOC yet.
All right. Well, let's just, for our listeners to, you know, understand why, you know, this is such a big deal, is the fact that there was a federal high court order in November 2022 ordering all parties involved in the proposed national carrier to maintain status quo, effectively truncating the December takeoff dates as pledged by the minister. There's also one, you know, on that was made on May 26th. Yes, that being the Friday. No, yes, same thing. You know, saying taking them or stopping them from taking any step about the Nigeria Air project. All right. Well, here we are now. They are taking deliveries of planes. But more details on page 15 of the Guardian newspaper. We'll see how you know, that will turn out eventually. Let's move on now very quickly to the Nation newspaper. Unfortunately, we don't have so much stories or reports you know, on the front page of the Nation. The major front page is on page 2 of the Nation newspaper. On the front page, we have Tom Polo felicitates with Shiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It's taking almost the entire, it's taking the entire front page actually. And this, we also had this same one yesterday, you know, across the front pages of the dailies, you know, where, you know, we have Tom Polo, you know, congratulating both the outgoing and the incoming administration. Is there something significant that we can take away from you know, whatever Mr. Tom Polo is trying to do?
Sandra, if you have a 4 billion monthly contract, so you will not congratulate the people that gave you the contract.
Are you saying this is lobbying?
It's not lobbying. It's just saying thank you to people that give you such a juicy contract. 4 billion every month, Sandra. Now my mind.
No, but so
you must congratulate them.
It's congratulating the incoming president. So I'm here so that you know that they pay me, so that you pay me my own too.
No, sir. I'm still doing the job. I'm sorry, hello. Nothing must happen. We are with you, and we are highly expectant of a better performance and working relationship. That's what he's doing.
That's interesting.
And it's in order. If I have such a contract, so I'll congratulate everybody, both the outgoing, the incoming, and the future ones that we don't even know.
For a project that, you know, we still have questions, or for an you know, a contract that we still have questions.
Performance review that we don't have
that we still have questions on.
Doesn't matter. The guy has a
Okay.
contract, he has a contract. So he's
Okay.
doing what he needs to do as a private person, business person. So it's
Mm.
part of PR now, So he does do what he needs to do.
Mm. 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 All right. Well, he said a whole lot, but then what strikes out is, from what he's wrote in this letter here, from his congratulatory messages
Yes.
to our detractors, economic saboteurs, and enemies of the nation. The message is strong and clear. Our resolve to stamp out crude oil theft and the destruction of our environment is non-negotiable. That is from the front page of the Nation newspaper, as written by High Chief Government Owezde Ekpemupolo, also known as Tom Polo. Now, still on the front page, well, let's move on now to the main front page of the Nation newspaper. The major headline: Tinubu, I understand the magnitude of tax ahead. Riders, President-elect gets baton of service, transition documents. Buhari confers GCFR on Tinubu and GCON on Shetima. President, after a good race, I have passed the baton. The president said he has fought the good fight and, he has done well and he has passed on the baton to the president-elect. It's interesting how things are, going. The inauguration seems to be going really smooth. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Of course, the process is going on well. Again, we have always said this. No matter what we think about the electoral process, what the Constitution says is what we are actually witnessing. There must be a transition. The president-elect, as declared, must be sworn in. And then we wait for what the court would come out with, or the decisions of the court.
Okay.
Which I think is even a long process, So congratulations to the president-elect who will be sworn in on Monday.
More details on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. This is Trends in the Papers. We're looking through the major stories on the front pages of our dailies. That's what we're doing right now. Still on the front page of the Nation newspaper, I have a very interesting headline here for it. This is a quote. I knew nothing about education when appointed. The Minister of Education is recalling his early days as Minister of Education. What do you think about that statement?
Read the story so that we are not accused of taking the story out of context.
We're jumping the gun. Okay.
Minister of headlines sometimes.
But
I want us to put it in proper context.
Proper perspective, yes. Minister of Education Adamu has admitted he had no knowledge of the education sector when President Muhammadu Buhari appointed him to man the Federal Ministry of Education. The minister said what he had was a superficial knowledge of the sector. Adamu, who happens to be the longest serving education minister, was appointed in 2015 and he served for 91 months. The minister said to make up for his lack of knowledge, he consulted professors of education who assisted him in putting a roadmap together for the sector. And the roadmap was expected to serve as a blueprint to cure most of the ailments affecting the sector and provided immediate short and long-term solutions. It had 10 pillars. He said he had 10 pillars. And he said, or he added, and I'm quoting now, I didn't know anything about education except superficially. When Buhari decided to make me Minister of Education, there is somebody here who was the first person I called. He said, what do you want to achieve? I said, good things. And these are my ideas as a learner. After that meeting, professors of education were called, and I told them what I wanted to achieve and let them put it in writing for me, and they did. And then we had the document.
What you wanted to achieve about a sector you didn't know anything about?
Yes, he said good things. Good things.
I just talked about.
Has he achieved good things in the education sector?
I don't know whether.
Who are these professors, FUHAD, that of education that helped him to draft the blueprint?
This is. It is nice that this is not us saying this. This is a minister admitting that he was actually a round peg in a square hole. Basically, this is an admittance of the fact that he never knew anything about the sector that he was, appointed to head. No. Basically, that's just what he's admitting, and I think he's actually trying to exonerate himself from whatever failure that has been recorded in the education sector. Now, I'm going to say this, and with all sense of responsibility. You see, again, there are three levels of failure as to what Minister Adamu is saying. The first level of failure is the appointment in itself by the president, which I think was done out of political affiliation and all of that. The second one is the approval by the National Assembly. You know, we keep seeing situations where ministerial nominees are sent to the House for greening and questioning. But what do you find when they get there? Is that they are made to bow and without answering any question because you were former senators. Or you have them going there, people not asking serious questions, you know, faffing around, and then they just tell them to go, and then we have ministers. We are not deliberate about really getting the right people, you know, into the right position. And that's what we have seen. And are you surprised that as you speak, the education sector is in such chaos? Because if the minister is saying that I was appointed and I had to be sitting, you see, the problem again is that if you don't have a deep knowledge about something, if they give you a policy document, Sandra, how do you even understand the document that was presented to you by professor?
Yeah, to interpret.
To interpret and then understand how to implement it. That was why I was mentioning that some of the ministries that we even merge together, it is because we don't know that we have to be deliberate about fixing those sectors. You merge Ministry of Information, Culture, and Tourism. You know, people will tell you that one of the biggest industries in the world is the tourism industry, that you don't even joke with at all. And you must get somebody who understands the business of tourism to handle it. But you put it under Minister of Information. Alhaji Lai Mohammed was a journalist before. And he said he's going to do anything about it. So, again, that's why I said that for the incoming government, I'm cautiously optimistic about the prospect. But again, I start to begin to judge them from the kinds of appointments they make and the policy direction. I begin to see the tone when they take over power. But it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that we have a minister that said, you know anything about the sector, he was appointed to go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I see it as, you know, he's just being honest. But you know, one would think the honesty would have come before when he was collecting their. I don't know anything. Don't give me this job. I don't know.
Nobody rejects appointment in Nigeria, minister. As I am, like they say, if they say FUHAD, we have seen you worthy. We are appointing you as minister for power, and then.
So you go and consult electricians and.
I'll call professors to come and give me a roadmap
right.
on that. The power sector, what should we do?
All right, Fuad, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are pressed for time, so I'm going to be rushing you a bit through the rest of the stories that we have this morning. But it's important that we actually look through this particular story. I've been trying to get a hold of it, but can't find it. It's as regards the Akure on Ado-Ekiti Road that's been inaugurated, because you know it's not been done. Just we're going to start planning it, and there's a contract as well as regards that. But the story is supposed to be on page 27 of The Nation, but I can't find it there. But work begins on 45-kilometer Akure Ado-Ekiti Road, and it says that road had actually been abandoned for years, and the Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, was there to, flag off that particular one. Okay, so, well, we can search through The Nation. Hopefully, someone will be able to get it. Let's quickly move on now to Vanguard newspaper. And just as we had on The Nation newspaper, we also have on the front page of Vanguard a letter from Tom Polo felicitating with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the incoming president, or the president-elect. All right, that's what is on the front page of Vanguard. However, if you turn the front page to the next one, we have the main, where you have all of the major headlines. And the major headline here is, I know extent of task ahead. I won't fail Nigerians. And that's coming from President-elect Tinubu. And riders to that. Promises headway on security, economy, agric, jobs, education, health, power. Buhari confers GCON on Tinubu Nshetima. Says, I've run a good race. Time to pass the baton. Adds Nigeria is in safe hands with Tinubu. Will stop any attempt to scuttle handover, DSS warns. Appellate court declines to stop Tinubu's inauguration, fines lawyer 40 million naira. We've already had conversations around all of these stories. More details on pages 5 and 35 of Vanguard newspaper. Now, moving on, still on the front page of Vanguard, we also have a story here. 48 million barrels. Alleged illegal sale of crude false. Malami insists. And that story is on page 8 of Vanguard. Very quickly, I'll just rush through. We have here Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami SAN, insisted that the allegation of illegal sale of 48 million barrels of crude oil valued at $2.4 billion was false. He appeared before the House of Representatives ad hoc committee, who are investigating an alleged loss of over $2.4 billion in revenue from illegal sale of 48 million barrels of crude oil export in 2015, including all crude oil exports and sales from 2014 till date, and it's being chaired by Mark Gibler. FUHAD, according to...
It's good at the House of Reps. Yeah, okay, please go on. Please go on, yeah.
According to Malami, he said no document was made available, relating to the matter. He's talking about a document made available by the whistleblower or whoever made, or whoever gave the report. What document, to prove? And I'm quoting now, even when I am invited by this committee, not a single document was made available to me for consideration. In the absence of facts, in the absence of documents being presented, in the absence of documents being presented to me and to the National Assembly, in the absence of my participation in any subject matter of investigation, it's not out of place for me to conclude that there's no justifiable, reasonable ground basis for such consideration. FUHAD, just a minute.
But I think, again, he would have to defend himself. It's good that the House of Reps and the oversight function are investigating this allegation. He's been there for a long time. He leaves a case from 2016 till now. And we'll wait to see whether but ultimately, this particular story also brings to mind the independence of the EFCC. It's important that, again, if this incoming government is serious about tackling corruption, to find a way to create a legal roadmap for us to have an independent EFCC. Because as we have it now, even if the EFCC has facts about probing this case, they have to share their files with the Attorney General of the Federation, who is also called to question in this particular case. You understand what I'm saying? Because he has to, he's the chief prosecuting officer as a chief now, because he has to give legal advice on a case that he's now involved in. If you understand what I'm saying. So it's important going forward, if we really want to tackle corruption and we are deliberate about it, we must guarantee the independence of the EFCC and take them away from the Attorney General. They must operate independently of the Attorney General, who is a politician and appointee of the President. Very, very important. But on this particular case, we'll wait to see whether the incoming government is interested in it and they'll take it up.
All right, thank you very much. Very quickly, still on trends in the papers, we're through with Vanguard. We'll move on to New Telegraph. Fortunately or unfortunately as well, we have on the front page of New Telegraph the same felicitation letter from Tom Polo, taking about 90% of the front page of New Telegraph. So there's not much stories to pick from them. He's available. All right, but then very quickly,
you won't thank him that he allows you to have a line on the paper.
His face is there, but his picture is there. All right, and very quickly, and above the masthead of New Telegraph, we have here National Assembly, fresh twist as Akpabio, Abbas walk tight rope. 73 senators root for Kalu-Yari alliance. G6 unveils consensus peak next week. Tension in the north over Gbajabiamila and Wase's clash. Stories on page 4 of New Telegraph. That's all we can pick from New Telegraph for this morning. Thank you very much, FUHAD. We'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus. In the meantime, before we go, we'd like to appreciate Olashokun Elizabeth Alayo, Folorunsho Ade, Oluwole Noah Taiwo for joining in via Facebook and dropping some comments there as well. Thank you very much. We'll be back by 8:40. We'll still be streaming Mainland Focus as well, so stay tuned. This is Mainland 98.3 FM. My name is Omobola Sandra.
The broadcast